Hi everybody, Bethel here, the creator, writer, and artist of the Long John webcomic, here with another Bethel Draws video. And this page is one of 3 new pages. Now I said in previous updates that the book was drawn and was in the middle of getting colored. Yes, but there's been a nagging feeling in the back of my brain for a while going like, I think I need some more exposition, sort of scene-setting pages, with the hope of maybe only needing to draw 1, but I kept kind of talking myself out of it, and then after a recent trip out to the Eastern Sierras, where this comic takes place, and especially going to Bridgeport, where this scene takes place, I realized I not only needed 1 page, I actually needed 3. Mostly that's because of how book layouts work. You can either add 1 page or 3 pages to a book because it'll throw off the left and right page turn kind of stuff. It was while on the trip, we were in Bridgeport. I'm like, it's an establishing shot at a town we were briefly at before. We need to not only set up where this is taking place to distinguish it from other places we've been, but it'd also be a good way to sort of introduce the reader to the chapter, and ultimately introducing Long John into the chapter as well. I think one of the things that was making me drag my feet is that these are complicated pages, because they're establishing shots, which usually, establishing the scene, setting, time, and all that kind of stuff, which means they tend to be of buildings, streets, people, showing life in action. And that's hard, because it takes a lot of time and decision making instead of just having 2 people talking to each other. With the help of some reference shots of local buildings, I was able to use those ideas and actually formulate these establishing shots to establish a sense of place and time. I wanted to get these done quickly, and so I decided to do something I last talked about with the Chapter 5 cover, and actually pencil these pages using Procreate on the iPad, and then print them out in blue lines so I can ink them physically, and that's what I did. So what you're seeing now is just the pencils for this page of the chapter. And so I'm not doing super refined drawing. I'm not making everything as cohesive and unified as it would ultimately look in the book. That's for inking to worry about. And this is just about getting everything set up and as accurate as I want to make it and getting it ready to actually get inked. The hardest part is the perspective, this sort of bird's eye view, looking down at the town, having stuff in the foreground, middle ground, and background, and making sure it all lines up. And even then, I'm going to admit that I didn't do it perfectly, but I did give it my best shot. It involves drawing a lot of perspective lines that can seem very confusing and daunting, and even when you're doing it, it's super confusing and daunting. It took me a while to realize this stage is important of putting all these lines on the page so that you can make sure that, especially as we go into and out of the field of view, people and buildings and objects scale accordingly. And so you can guesstimate it, you can eyeball it. Ultimately, it's easier to just kind of get this stuff worked out. I'm not going to lie. The reason why Procreate would speed this process up is that instead of me having to physically draw all these guidelines and erasing them, I can have those guidelines on separate layers and use especially the power of Photoshop to make sure the lines are straight, they're equidistant from each other. That even allows me to place what we call vanishing points on the horizon line. This is getting really technical, I apologize. To make sure that everything's kind of lining up so I don't have to do any erasing and redrawing where I'm actually destroying paper and second guessing myself. It's the ability to take risks digitally is much less consequential, and it therefore enhances the fun of drawing in a lot of ways, especially when you get something done quickly. It's mostly kind of me just figuring stuff out, and especially as I'm populating the street, I wanted to make it look busy. I should have probably put more people on the street, but I was getting tired. But every time you're putting a person on the page, you want to make sure that they look different, that they're doing something instead of just standing there like robots, that they're conveying a tone, a vibe, and perhaps even a purpose for them being out on the street that day. And I think overall, it's probably one of the most challenging drawings I've ever done, and especially with the inked page that'll be in Chapter 5, one of the most rewarding pages I've ever drawn. And I'm very happy to share this with you. It was a huge leap, especially for something I did at the last minute, knowing I had to do it, knowing that it'd be really difficult, and mostly because I've intentionally tried to avoid drawing these types of pages, because you want to draw what's easy. Sometimes you just have to take that step and get the work done. And I've always tried to push myself, maybe not in every page, but in every book of Long John. And it's always been incredibly rewarding. And I end each book going like, I'm a better artist than I was when I started. Just plugging myself in and said, let's get this done, and actually having it get done in a satisfactory and appealing way. So that it doesn't just look like technical drawings, it looks like something I drew and is cohesive with the rest of not only the book, but my style And that's something that I've always been kind of thinking about and worried about and focusing on as I go from page to page to book to project to project. I want to make sure that the world can see that not only can I just draw buildings in perspective, but they look like buildings in the same plane, in the same style, in the same world as the characters that are drawing in. So it's not as antiseptic and technical. It looks lived in, broken in, and drawn with the same pen, for lack of a better word, as the characters that they're surrounding. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm going to go get back to work on Chapter 5. Check out the comic at longjohncomic.com, and thank you for watching me draw.